The morning started like any other Tuesday at Riverside Medical Center. The automatic doors swished open and closed as patients shuffled in, some leaning on canes, others clutching appointment cards with trembling hands. The waiting room smelled like antiseptic, mixed with the faint aroma of coffee from the small cafe down the hall. Maya Rodriguez stood behind the nurse's station, organizing patient files with the kind of focus that made her nearly invisible. At 27, she had perfected the art of blending into the background. While other nurses chatted and laughed during their breaks, Maya preferred the quiet company of her patients. Small talk exhausted her in a way that 12-hour shifts never did. She glanced at the clock. 9:15. Her next rounds wouldn't start for another 10 minutes. Maya allowed herself a moment to breathe. Watching the controlled chaos of the hospital lobby, the receptionist Linda was already looking frazzled. Juggling phone calls and walk-ins with decreasing patience. That's when Maya noticed her. An older woman sat alone near the window, perched on the edge of a plastic chair like she might bolt at any moment. Everything about her screamed elegance, from her perfectly styled silver hair to the camel-colored coat that probably cost more than Maya's monthly rent. But her face told a different story. Her eyes darted around the room with barely concealed panic, and her hands gripped her designer purse so tightly her knuckles had gone white. Maya knew that look. She'd seen it countless times in her 7 years of nursing. Fear, confusion, the desperate need for help but not knowing how to ask for it. The woman stood and approached Linda's desk. Maya watched as Linda spoke to her, probably asking for her name or appointment time. The woman stared at Linda's face with intense concentration, then shook her head helplessly. Linda repeated herself louder this time, the way people do when they think volume solves all communication problems. The woman's shoulders sagged. She tried to speak, but her voice came out strange, flat, the words unclear. Linda's expression shifted from annoyance to barely concealed frustration. She grabbed a pen and paper, scribbling something down and sliding it across the counter. Maya's chest tightened. She recognized what was happening before her brain fully processed it. The way the woman watched Linda's lips so intently, the tilt of her head, trying to catch sounds that weren't there. The humiliation creeping across her face as other patients in the waiting room began to stare. The woman was deaf. Maya's feet moved before her mind caught up. Her shyness, her social anxiety, all of it evaporated in the face of someone who needed help. She approached the desk just as Linda was pointing aggressively at the paper, speaking even louder, as if the woman's ears just needed a little more volume to suddenly work. "Excuse me," Maya said softly, touching Linda's arm. "I can help." Linda threw her hands up. "Good luck. She doesn't seem to understand anything." Maya turned to the woman and took a breath. Then she raised her hands and signed, her fingers forming the shapes she'd practiced thousands of times. "Hello, my name is Maya. Can I help you?" The transformation was instant and beautiful. The woman's eyes went wide, then filled with tears. Her entire body seemed to relax, as if someone had cut strings that had been holding her painfully taut. She signed back rapidly, her hands moving with the fluid grace of someone who'd been speaking this language her entire life. "Oh, thank God," the woman signed. "I thought I was going to have to leave. No one here understands me." "I understand you." Maya signed back with a gentle smile. "You're safe here. Let me help you check in." The woman pressed a hand to her chest, composing herself. "My name is Patricia Mendoza. I have an appointment at 9:30 with Dr. Harrison. I'm visiting from San Diego." Maya turned to Linda, who was watching with her mouth slightly open. "Her name is Patricia Mendoza. 9:30 appointment with Dr. Harrison." Linda blinked, then began typing into her computer. "Oh, yes, here she is. I just need her insurance card and ID." Maya signed the request to Patricia, who gratefully pulled out her wallet. As she waited for Linda to process the information, Maya noticed Patricia's hands shaking slightly. "Are you okay?" Maya signed. "Do you need water? Are you in pain?" Patricia shook her head, then signed back. "Just nervous. And grateful. You have no idea how rare it is to find someone who can talk to me like this. Most people just get frustrated or treat me like I'm stupid." Maya's heart ached. "You're not stupid. People just don't know how to communicate. That's their limitation, not yours." A smile broke across Patricia's face, the first real smile since she'd entered the hospital. "Are you always this kind?" Maya felt heat rise to her cheeks. She wasn't good at accepting compliments. "I'm just doing my job." "No," Patricia signed firmly. You're doing more than that. You're treating me like a person. Linda slid the insurance card back across the counter with a clipboard. She needs to fill this out. Maya took the clipboard and signed to Patricia. Just some standard forms. Medical history, current medications. Can you read English? Yes, perfectly, Patricia signed with a slight laugh. I'm deaf, not illiterate, Maya grinned. She liked this woman. I'll stay with you while you fill it out in case you have questions. They moved to a quieter corner of the waiting room. As Patricia worked through the forms, she would occasionally look up and sign a question. Maya answered each one patiently. Other nurses passed by, giving Maya curious looks. She rarely engaged with patients this way, usually keeping to herself, doing her job efficiently but quietly. But something about Patricia made Maya forget her usual anxiety. Maybe it was the sign language itself, a form of communication that felt natural to her in a way spoken words never did. Or maybe it was Patricia's obvious relief at being understood. Can I ask you something? Patricia signed after finishing the forms. Of course. How did you learn to sign? Are your parents deaf? Maya shook her head. No. When I was in college, I volunteered at a school for deaf children. I fell in love with the language. It's so expressive, so beautiful. I kept studying, took classes, practiced with the kids. It became a part of me. And you work here now? For 7 years. I don't use sign language very often, maybe once or twice a month, but when I do, it feels special. Patricia reached out and squeezed Maya's hand. You're special. Don't let anyone tell you different. Maya ducked her head, embarrassed but pleased. Let me return these forms for you. As Maya stood and turned toward the reception desk, she didn't notice the man who had just entered through the main doors. She didn't see him freeze mid-step, his phone halfway to his ear. She didn't see the way his eyes locked onto her hands as she signed one final thing to Patricia. I'll check on you after your appointment. But Patricia saw him. Her face lit up in a way that made her look 20 years younger. She waved enthusiastically, signing something Maya couldn't quite catch because her back was turned. Maya returned the clipboard to Linda, who muttered a grudging thanks without looking up. When Maya turned back to Patricia, she found the older woman standing, gathering her things, clearly getting ready to move to the waiting area outside Dr. Harrison's office. Thank you again, Patricia signed. You've made my morning so much better. It was my pleasure, Maya signed back. Really, I hope your appointment goes well. She watched Patricia walk away, feeling that warm glow that came from helping someone, from making a genuine connection. Then she glanced at her watch. Her rounds were officially starting. Time to get back to work, back to being invisible, back to the safety of routine. Maya headed toward the elevator, already mentally reviewing her patient list for the morning. She didn't see the tall man in the expensive suit watching her from across the lobby, didn't notice the intensity in his eyes or the way his hand had dropped to his side. Phone forgotten. Alexander Mendoza had built a fortune in medical technology. He'd negotiated deals worth millions, faced down hostile boardrooms and revolutionized patient care systems used in hospitals across the country. But in that moment, watching a shy nurse sign naturally with his mother, he felt something he rarely experienced. Awe. He'd been running late, as usual. A conference call had gone long, then traffic had been brutal. He'd promised his mother he'd be there before her appointment, and he'd failed. Again. The guilt sat heavy in his chest as he'd rushed through the hospital doors, already composing an apology. Then he'd seen her. His mother, sitting with a young nurse, both of them signing like old friends. His mother was smiling. Really smiling. Not the polite smile she gave his hired interpreters or the sad smile she wore when he struggled through basic signs. This was genuine joy. Alexander had slowly lowered his phone, watching the entire interaction. He saw the nurse's patience, her gentle manner, the way she made his mother laugh. He saw his mother's shoulders relax, saw the tension leave her face. In 5 minutes, this stranger had done what he'd been failing to do for 3 years. She'd made his mother feel seen. When the nurse stood to leave, Alexander got his first clear look at her face. Young, probably late 20s. Pretty, but not in the polished way of the women he usually met at charity galas and business dinners. Her scrubs were simple, her dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. No makeup that he could see, but there was something luminous about her, something genuine that made her stand out in the sterile hospital environment. His mother waved at him and he forced himself to move, crossing the lobby with long strides. Patricia's face glowed with happiness as she signed to him. "Alex, you won't believe what just happened. The sweetest nurse helped me. She knows sign language. Real sign language, not just the alphabet. We had an actual conversation." Alexander glanced toward the elevator where the nurse had disappeared, then back at his mother. "I saw." He signed back, his movement slower and clumsier than the nurse's had been. "I'm glad someone helped you." "I'm sorry I was late." Patricia waved off his apology. "You're here now." But Alex, that nurse, she was so kind. So patient. Do you know how rare that is? Most people treat me like I'm invisible or stupid. She treated me like a person. Alexander nodded, filing away every word his mother signed. He'd spent years trying to make his mother's life easier with his money. The best doctors, the finest assisted living facilities, top-of-the-line hearing aids that she refused to wear because they gave her headaches. He'd thrown resources at the problem, but he couldn't buy what his mother really needed: connection, understanding, someone who saw her as a whole person, not a disability to manage. And this nurse, whose name he didn't even know, had given his mother that gift in 5 minutes. "Come on," he signed. "Let's get you to your appointment." As he walked with his mother down the hallway, Alexander's mind was already working. He'd built his company by identifying problems and creating solutions. This was a problem. His mother was lonely, isolated in her world of silence despite living in his guest house, despite having everything money could buy, and he'd just seen the solution signing to his mother in a hospital lobby. By the time they reached Dr. Harrison's office, Alexander had made up his mind. He pulled out his phone and typed a quick message to his assistant. He needed information. The nurse's name, her background, everything. Patricia touched his arm, pulling his attention away from his phone. "What are you thinking about?" She signed. "You have that look you get when you're planning something." Alexander smiled and signed back. "Just work stuff. Don't worry about it," but it wasn't work. Not really. For the first time in years, Alexander was thinking about something more important than quarterly reports and board meetings. He was thinking about how to give his mother her life back. And he was thinking about the shy nurse with kind eyes, who'd shown him what he'd been missing all along. The nurse who had no idea. She just changed everything, Maya. Didn't think about Patricia Mendoza for the rest of her shift. She couldn't afford to. Room 304 needed wound care. Room 310 was due for medication. And room 318 had family members with endless questions about post-surgery recovery. By the time her lunch break rolled around at 2 in the afternoon, her feet ached, and her stomach was growling loud enough that other nurses teased her about it. She grabbed her packed lunch from the staff refrigerator and found her usual spot in the corner of the break room, away from the main table where everyone else gathered. She could hear them talking about weekend plans, about someone's terrible date, about the new doctor who apparently looked like he belonged in a TV drama. Maya pulled out her phone and scrolled through messages from her mom while eating her sandwich. "Hey, Maya," one of the other nurses, Jennifer, called over. "Come sit with us." Maya forced a smile and held up her phone. "Thanks, but I'm just catching up on some things." It was easier than explaining that sitting at that table, trying to follow 3 conversations at once, making small talk and laughing at the right moments, made her feel like she was performing in a play where everyone else knew their lines except her. She was almost done with her lunch when her phone buzzed with a text from her mom. "Did you remember to pay the electric bill? It's due today." Maya's stomach dropped. She'd forgotten. Again. She quickly logged into her banking app and made the payment, watching her checking account balance dip into uncomfortable territory. $243 until her next paycheck. And that was before gas, groceries, and the minimum payment on her student loans. She closed the app and pressed her fingers against her tired eyes. 7 years out of nursing school and she was still drowning in debt, still living in a cramped studio apartment with a heater that barely worked, still picking up extra shifts whenever she could just to stay afloat. Her mom's situation was worse. After Maya's dad died 4 years ago, her mom had tried to keep their small house, but the property taxes kept climbing, and the repairs never stopped. Last month it was the roof. This month the water heater was making concerning noises. Maya sent what she could, but it never felt like enough. She shook off the thoughts. Worrying wouldn't change anything. She threw away her lunch bag, smoothed down her scrubs, and headed back to her floor. Work was the one place where she felt competent, where she knew exactly what she was supposed to do. The afternoon passed in a blur of vital signs. Medication rounds and helping elderly patients to the bathroom. By the time Maya's shift ended at 7, the early autumn darkness had already settled over the city. She changed out of her scrubs in the locker room, pulling on jeans and a warm sweater, and headed for the employee parking lot. Her 12-year-old Honda coughed to life on the third try. She really needed to take it to a mechanic, but that was another expense she kept pushing to the bottom of the list. As long as it started eventually, it was fine. Probably. Maya was halfway home when her phone rang through the car's speakers. The hospital number flashed on the screen. Her heart jumped. Had she forgotten to chart something? Made a medication error? Hello? Maya, hi. It's Carol Morrison. The nursing director's voice was warm and friendly, which only made Maya more nervous. Directors didn't usually call nurses directly unless something was wrong. Hi, Miss Morrison, is everything okay? Everything's fine. Actually, better than fine. I wanted to talk to you about something, but it's not really a phone conversation. Are you working tomorrow? Yes, ma'am. 7 to 7. Could you come in 30 minutes early? Stop by my office before your shift? Maya's anxiety spiked. Of course. Can I ask what this is about? It's nothing bad, I promise. Actually, it's a really exciting opportunity, but I'd rather discuss it in person. They said goodbye, and Maya spent the rest of the drive home running through every possible scenario. An opportunity? What kind of opportunity? Was she being promoted, fired? No, Morrison had said it was exciting. But what if that was just code for something else? She barely slept that night. The next morning, Maya arrived at the hospital at 6:30, her stomach in knots. She'd changed her outfit 3 times, finally settling on the same thing she always wore: scrubs. Carol Morrison's office was on the administrative floor, a part of the hospital Maya rarely visited. The carpet was nicer here, the walls decorated with framed photos of hospital milestones and community events. Morrison's assistant waved her right in. The director looked up from her computer and smiled. She was in her 50s with gray-streaked hair and laugh lines around her eyes. Everyone said she was tough but fair. Maya, come in, sit down, coffee? No, thank you. Maya perched on the edge of the chair, her hands clasped in her lap. Morrison studied her for a moment, then leaned back in her chair. You look terrified. I promise this really is good news. She pulled a folder from her desk drawer. I got an interesting call yesterday afternoon from a family looking for a very specific kind of care provider for their mother. Maya blinked. Okay? The mother is deaf. She's in her 60s in good health overall. But she's been struggling with isolation and loneliness. The family is looking for someone who can provide companionship, light medical oversight, and most importantly, someone who can communicate with her naturally in sign language. Understanding began to dawn. The woman from yesterday, Patricia. Morrison nodded. Her son reached out through some connections he has with the hospital board. He was very impressed with how you helped his mother. He asked specifically about you. Maya's mind raced. I was just being nice. I didn't do anything special. That's exactly what he said his mother needs. Not someone who treats her like a job, but someone who sees her as a person. Morrison slid the folder across the desk. This would be a private care position. Part-time initially, evenings and weekends to start. You'd keep your position here at the hospital, but this would supplement your income significantly. Maya opened the folder with shaking hands. The first page outlined the job duties: companionship, conversation, light meal preparation, accompaniment to appointments and social activities, basic health monitoring. Nothing too different from what she already did, just one-on-one. Then she saw the compensation line and nearly dropped the folder. That can't be right, she whispered. It's right. The family wants to ensure they get the best care for their mother, and they're willing to compensate accordingly. Maya did quick math in her head. Even working just 15 hours a week at this rate, she'd make more than she made in a month at the hospital. She could pay off her credit cards, help her mom with the house repairs, maybe even start actually saving money. Why me? The question came out barely above a whisper. There are other nurses who know sign language. Better nurses. Morrison's expression softened. Maya, you're one of the best nurses on staff. Your patient care scores are excellent. You go above and beyond constantly. The only reason you're not a charge nurse is because you told me you didn't want the position. That was true. Maya had turned down the promotion because it meant more meetings, more social interaction, more being in charge of other people. The thought made her want to hide in a supply closet. But this feels like charity, Maya said. Like they're trying to buy. They're not buying anything except quality care for someone they love. Patricia's son is very devoted to her, but he works constantly and can't give her the time and attention she needs. He's tried hiring companions before, but none of them knew sign language. They used interpreters, which his mother found impersonal and uncomfortable. Morrison leaned forward. Look, I understand this feels overwhelming. But think about what this could mean. For you, yes, but also for Patricia. You made her feel seen in 5 minutes. Imagine what you could do with regular time together. Maya stared at the folder. Her practical side screamed at her to say yes immediately. The money alone would change her life. But something held her back. Maybe it was pride. Maybe it was fear of accepting something that felt too good to be true. Can I think about it? She asked. Of course. Take a couple days. But Maya? Morrison waited until she looked up. Don't let anxiety or imposter syndrome talk you out of something good. You deserve this. Maya carried the folder with her throughout her shift, tucked into her locker like a secret. During her lunch break, she finally opened it again and read through everything carefully. There was a formal job description, information about Patricia's medical history, mostly routine age-related issues, nothing serious, and contact information. At the bottom was a handwritten note on expensive stationery. Dear Maya, my mother hasn't smiled like that in 3 years. Thank you for giving her a moment of genuine connection. If you're willing, I'd love to discuss how we can give her more moments like that. Sincerely, Alexander Mendoza. Maya read the note 3 times. The handwriting was neat, precise, but something about it felt personal, sincere. This wasn't just a business transaction to him. This was about his mother. That evening, Maya drove to her mom's house instead of going home. She needed advice from the one person who always gave it to her straight. Her mother was in the kitchen making dinner from whatever odds and ends were in the fridge. The house felt cold. The heater was probably acting up again. Mia! Her mom hugged her tight. I didn't know you were coming. Have you eaten? Not yet. Maya sat at the familiar kitchen table, scarred from years of homework and family meals. Mom, something happened at work. She explained everything while her mother listened, occasionally stirring the soup on the stove. When Maya finished, her mom came and sat across from her, taking both of Maya's hands in her own weathered ones. What are you afraid of? Her mother asked. Maya struggled to put it into words. That I'm not good enough. That they'll realize they made a mistake choosing me. That this is too good to be true and something will go wrong. And what are you hoping for? That question was easier. That it's real. That I can help Patricia the way I helped Dad when he got sick. That maybe I can finally breathe a little, financially. That maybe I can help you fix the heater and the water heater and everything else. Her mother squeezed her hands. Mija, your father would be so proud of you. You know what he always said? Maya smiled despite the tears in her eyes. That fear is just excitement without the breath. Exactly. So breathe. And say yes to this opportunity. Not because of the money, though, that will help. Say yes because you have a gift and someone needs that gift. Her mother stood and ladled soup into bowls. Now eat. You're too skinny. And then you're going to call those people and accept their offer. Maya laughed, wiping her eyes. When did you get so bossy? I've always been bossy. You're just usually too polite to notice. 2 days later, Maya sat in a coffee shop across from Alexander Mendoza, trying not to feel completely out of her depth. He was younger than she'd expected, maybe late 30s with dark hair starting to gray at the temples and the kind of presence that made people notice when he walked into a room. His suit probably cost more than her car, but his eyes were kind. Tired, but kind. Thank you for meeting me, he said. I know this whole situation is unusual. It is, Maya admitted. But I want to help your mother. She seems like a wonderful person. She is. Something in his expression softened. She's the strongest person I know. She lost her hearing when she was 6, some kind of infection, but she never let it stop her. She got married, raised me, had a full life. Then my father died 3 years ago and everything changed. He paused, looking down at his coffee. My father knew sign language. They could talk about anything, everything, but I was always too busy to learn properly, too impatient. I'd get frustrated and quit, and my dad would translate for us. He looked up and Maya saw guilt in his eyes. Now he's gone, and I can barely have a real conversation with my own mother. I've hired interpreters, companions, but she feels like they're just doing a job. Which they are. But He gestured helplessly. You talked to her like she was your friend. She made it easy, Maya said softly. She's funny and warm. Spending time with her won't feel like work. Alexander's shoulders relaxed slightly. That's what I was hoping you'd say. Look, I know the money seems excessive, but my mother's happiness is worth more to me than any amount. And honestly, nurses are criminally underpaid for what you do. Maya felt her cheeks heat. I just want to make sure she knows I'm doing this because I want to, not because of the salary. She'll know. Trust me, my mother can read people better than anyone I've ever met. He pulled out a tablet and opened a calendar. So if you're interested, we were thinking maybe 3 evenings a week to start. 5 to 9, and maybe 1 weekend afternoon. You'd mostly keep her company, maybe make dinner together, watch movies, whatever she enjoys. Just be there. Maya thought about her tiny apartment, her empty evenings spent watching TV alone, her weekends spent catching up on laundry and errands. I can do that. When would you want me to start? Alexander's smile transformed his whole face. Really, you'll do it? Yes, I'll do it. How about this Saturday? Come for lunch, meet the house, spend a few hours getting to know each other without any pressure. They shook hands and Maya felt like she'd just stepped off a cliff, unsure if she was falling or flying. As she drove home, her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Maya, this is Patricia. Alexander gave me your number. I hope that's okay. I can't wait to see you Saturday. Thank you for saying yes. You have no idea what this means to me. Maya pulled over to respond, her hands shaking slightly as she typed. I can't wait either. See you Saturday. She sat there for a moment, watching the city lights blur through her windshield, and let herself feel something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Maya changed her outfit 4 times before settling on dark jeans and a simple blue sweater. Not too casual, not too formal. She didn't want to look like she was trying too hard, but she also didn't want to show up to a millionaire's house looking sloppy. Her hands shook slightly as she applied a light touch of mascara, something she rarely bothered with on her days off. The GPS led her out of the city and into the kind of neighborhood where the houses hid behind tall gates and manicured hedges. Her old Honda felt conspicuous on streets designed for luxury cars. When she finally pulled up to the address Alexander had given her, she sat in the driveway for a full minute staring at the iron gates. This was a mistake. She didn't belong here. These people lived in a different world, and she was just a nurse who could barely pay her bills. What was she thinking? Her phone buzzed. A text from Patricia. Are you here? I'm so excited I keep looking out the window. Maya laughed despite her nerves. There was something about Patricia's enthusiasm that cut through all the intimidation. She pressed the call button on the gate intercom. Hi, it's Maya. The gate swung open immediately. The driveway curved through a garden that looked like something from a magazine, and then the house came into view. It wasn't as massive as she'd feared, more elegant than ostentatious. Warm stone, big windows, flowers in terracotta pots by the front door. Before Maya could even turn off her car, Patricia burst out the front door, waving enthusiastically. She wore comfortable jeans and a colorful cardigan, her silver hair loose around her shoulders. She looked less polished than she had at the hospital, more relaxed. More real. Maya got out of the car and Patricia immediately pulled her into a hug. I'm so happy you're here, Patricia signed when she stepped back. Come in, come in. Are you hungry? I made way too much food. You didn't have to do that, Maya signed back, but she was smiling. I wanted to. Cooking for one person is boring. Cooking for 2 is fun. The inside of the house was beautiful but surprisingly cozy. Family photos covered the walls. Comfortable furniture filled the rooms, and Maya could smell something delicious coming from the kitchen. This didn't feel like a showpiece. It felt like a home. Patricia led her through to a bright kitchen with windows overlooking a garden. The counter was covered with dishes. Fresh bread, a colorful salad, some kind of pasta, fruit, cookies. Way more than 2 people could eat. I might have gotten carried away, Patricia signed with a sheepish smile. Maya laughed. I can see that. It looks amazing. They filled their plates and sat at a small table in a sunny breakfast nook. For a while they just ate and made small talk through signing. Patricia asked about Maya's week, and Maya asked about Patricia's garden. Easy conversation, comfortable like they'd known each other for years instead of days. After lunch, Patricia gave her a tour. The main house was where Alexander lived, though Patricia mentioned he was rarely there. Always working, she signed with a mixture of pride and sadness. Building his empire, he says. I tell him he's building walls. The guest house where Patricia lived was smaller but still beautiful, with its own kitchen, living room, bedroom, and a sunroom filled with plants. Books in English and Spanish covered every available surface. Photo albums sat stacked on the coffee table. I was looking through these this morning, Patricia signed, settling onto the couch and patting the cushion next to her, feeling nostalgic. Maya sat down as Patricia opened one of the albums. The photos were old, colors faded. A younger Patricia smiled from the pages, always with a handsome man who had kind eyes and the same smile as Alexander. My husband, Roberto, Patricia signed. We met when I was 22. He was learning sign language to communicate with his deaf students. He taught high school history. She turned the pages slowly, pointing out moments. Their wedding, a tiny baby Alexander, family vacations, birthdays, graduations. A whole life captured in fading photographs. He died 3 years ago, Patricia signed. Heart attack. Very sudden. One day he was here, the next he was gone. I'm so sorry, Maya signed. She knew those words were inadequate, but she didn't know what else to say. Patricia touched the photo of Roberto, her finger gentle on his face. After he died, I realized how small my world had become. Roberto was my translator, my connection to everything. Without him, I felt invisible again. Like when I was a little girl before I learned that being deaf didn't mean being less. She closed the album and looked at Maya. Alexander tries. He really does. But he's so busy, and learning sign language is hard when you're stressed and impatient. We use text messages mostly. It's not the same as real conversation. Maya's heart ached for this woman who had everything money could buy but was starving for connection. What do you miss most? Patricia thought for a moment. Silly things. Talking about books I've read. Sharing jokes. Having someone to cook with who can chat while we work. Going to the farmer's market and discussing which vegetables look best. She smiled sadly. I have a beautiful house and a son who loves me, but I'm lonely. Does that make sense? Perfect sense, Maya signed. You can be surrounded by things and still feel alone. Patricia squeezed her hand. I knew you'd understand. From the moment I saw you at the hospital, I knew. They spent the afternoon in the garden. Patricia showed Maya her roses, her herb garden, the vegetables she was trying to grow with mixed success. They pulled weeds together, chatted about everything and nothing. Patricia told stories about Alexander as a child, always getting into trouble, always asking questions. Maya talked about nursing school, about learning sign language, about her dad who'd died and her mom who was struggling. The conversation flowed naturally through their hands. No awkward silences, no struggling for words. Maya forgot to be nervous. She forgot about the expensive house and the gates and the different worlds they came from. She was just spending time with a friend. Around 4 o'clock, Patricia suggested they make dinner together. Nothing fancy, she signed. Just something simple. Do you like cooking? I love it, Maya signed back. But I usually just cook for one, so I don't do it often. They decided on chicken fajitas, something Patricia said was Roberto's favorite. They worked side by side in the kitchen, Patricia chopping vegetables while Maya seasoned the chicken. They moved around each other easily, signing one-handed while they worked, laughing when they nearly collided, reaching for the same spice. Maya was stirring the peppers and onions when she felt a shift in the air. She turned and found Alexander standing in the kitchen doorway, still in a dark suit, his tie loosened. He looked exhausted but surprised, his eyes moving from his mother's smiling face to the scene of domestic chaos in his usually pristine kitchen. Maya's stomach dropped. They'd made a mess. Vegetable peels on the counter, flour on the floor from the tortillas Patricia had insisted they make from scratch, dishes everywhere. She started to sign an apology, but Patricia got there first. Alex, you're home early. Are you hungry? We're making your father's fajitas. Something flickered across Alexander's face. Pain, maybe, or longing. He signed back slowly, deliberately. Smells good. I didn't mean to interrupt. You're not interrupting, Patricia signed. Stay, eat with us. When was the last time you had a real meal? He hesitated, and Maya could see him about to make an excuse. She recognized the look because she'd worn it herself countless times. The automatic retreat, the instinct to keep distance. But then his mother did something that changed the moment. She walked over and took his hand, signing with the other. Please. Just this once, stay. Alexander looked at his mother, then at Maya, then back at his mother. Maya saw him make a decision, saw the exact moment he chose to say yes instead of running back to whatever work crisis was probably blowing up his phone. Okay, he signed. I'll stay. Patricia's face lit up. She pointed at him. Go change. Put on normal clothes. No more work tonight. He smiled, a real smile that softened his whole face. Yes, ma'am. After he left, Patricia turned to Maya and signed with exaggerated excitement. He never stays for dinner, never. Your good luck. Maya wasn't sure about that, but she smiled anyway. She felt nervous about Alexander joining them, but also curious. She'd only seen him in business mode, formal and careful. She wondered what he was like when he relaxed. He came back 15 minutes later in jeans and a worn college sweatshirt, his hair slightly damp like he'd splashed water on his face. He looked younger, less intimidating, more human. They set the table together and Maya noticed how Alexander watched his mother, like he was memorizing this moment. They sat down, and Patricia served the food with the pride of someone sharing something precious. For a few minutes, everyone just ate. Then Patricia signed something to Alexander, who laughed and signed back. Maya caught bits of it, something about Alexander stealing tortillas as a child. Patricia turned to Maya and began telling the full story through sign language, her hands animated and expressive. Alexander watched his mother sign, and Maya saw something in his expression that made her chest tight. Love, yes, but also regret, loss, the sadness of someone who knows they're missing something they can't quite reach. When Patricia finished the story, she got up to get more drinks. Alexander turned to Maya, speaking out loud for the first time that evening. Thank you. For what? Maya asked. For this. For her. He gestured around the kitchen at the laughter and the mess and the casual warmth. I haven't seen her like this in years. This happy, this alive. Maya didn't know what to say. She's easy to be around. She makes me feel comfortable. That's a rare gift. Most people don't know how to just be with her. They treat her carefully like she's fragile. Or they ignore her because communication is hard. He paused. I'm guilty of that too. The ignoring part. Not on purpose, but busy becomes an excuse, and excuses become habits. Patricia came back before Maya could respond, but she caught Alexander's eye and gave him a small smile. He smiled back and something shifted between them. An understanding, maybe. A recognition that they both cared about this wonderful woman and wanted her to be happy. They spent the next hour at that table, long after the food was gone. Patricia told more stories, and Alexander surprised Maya by asking her to teach him some signs he'd been getting wrong. She showed him patiently, correcting his hand shapes, and Patricia watched them both with barely concealed delight. Eventually, Maya glanced at the clock and realized it was almost 8. I should go, she signed to Patricia. Let you have your evening. Already? Patricia's face fell. Time went so fast. I'll be back Tuesday, Maya signed. Same time? Patricia nodded enthusiastically, then pulled Maya into a tight hug. Thank you for today. It was perfect. Alexander walked Maya to her car. The evening air was cool, stars beginning to appear in the darkening sky. So I take it the first day went well? Maya laughed. I think so. Your mom is wonderful. Really, truly wonderful. She thinks the same about you. He paused, his hands in his pockets. I meant what I said in there. This is the happiest I've seen her since my father died. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it. I'm not doing anything special, just being her friend. That's exactly what's special about it. He opened her car door. Drive safe, and Maya, thank you for staying for dinner. I know that probably wasn't what you signed up for. Actually, Maya said, surprising herself with her honesty. It was really nice. As she drove home, Maya realized she was smiling. The nervousness from the morning felt like a distant memory. She'd spent the day with a new friend, shared a meal with people who felt less like employers and more like family. And for the first time in years, she was excited about going to work. Not hospital work, but this connection, this purpose, this feeling that she was exactly where she was supposed to be. Her phone buzzed at a red light. A text from Patricia, already counting the days until Tuesday. Sleep well, my dear friend. Maya saved the message and drove home with that smile still on her face, unaware that in the big house behind the gates, Alexander was standing at his kitchen window, thinking about the shy nurse who'd somehow made his mother laugh again, and wondering why he was already looking forward to Tuesday too. 3 months passed like pages turning in a favorite book. Maya fell into a rhythm that felt more natural than anything in her life had felt before. Hospital shifts 3 days a week, evenings with Patricia 3 times a week, and suddenly her life had color in places that used to be gray. Tuesday and Thursday evenings plus Saturday afternoons became sacred time. Maya would arrive at 5 and Patricia would already be waiting, usually with some new recipe she wanted to try or a project she'd been saving. They painted flower pots together. They watched old movies with subtitles, pausing to discuss the plot and laugh at the outdated fashion. They worked in the garden as the weather grew colder, preparing it for winter. They cooked elaborate meals and simple ones, sometimes eating in comfortable silence, sometimes signing so fast their hands were a blur. Maya's favorite nights were when they just sat in Patricia's sunroom with tea, talking about everything. Patricia told stories about growing up deaf in a hearing world, about the teachers who believed in her and the ones who didn't, about meeting Roberto and knowing immediately he was the one. Maya shared things she'd never told anyone, about her anxiety, about feeling invisible even in crowded rooms, about the loneliness that had become so familiar she'd stopped noticing it. "You're not invisible to me," Patricia signed one evening. "You're the brightest thing in my world right now." Maya had to look away, blinking back tears. She'd been taking care of people her whole adult life, but Patricia was the first person in a long time who seemed to care about taking care of her too. The money from the job changed Maya's life in practical ways. She paid off 2 credit cards. She bought her mom a new water heater and didn't have to set up a payment plan. She got her car properly serviced. She even started a small savings account, watching the balance grow with something close to disbelief. But the real change was less tangible. She felt lighter, like she'd been carrying a weight she could finally set down. What Maya didn't expect was Alexander. At first, he was barely there. She'd occasionally see him leaving as she arrived, or he'd text Patricia, asking her to save him leftovers. But slowly he started appearing more often. He'd come home at 7 instead of 9. He'd join them for dinner, still in his work clothes but with his tie removed and his sleeves rolled up. He'd sit at the kitchen counter while they cooked, his laptop open but mostly ignored, watching them communicate through sign language with an expression Maya couldn't quite read. "Teach me," he said one evening in early November. Maya and Patricia both looked up from the bread dough they were kneading. Alexander stood in the doorway holding his ever-present phone, but for once it wasn't pressed to his ear. "Teach you what?" Maya asked. "Sign language. Really teach me, not just basic phrases." He looked at his mother. "I want to talk to you." "Really talk?" "The way you and Maya talk." Patricia's eyes filled with tears. She signed something quickly, and Alexander shook his head helplessly. "See, I don't understand." "I hate not understanding." Maya felt something shift in her chest. She'd seen Alexander in many moods over the past months. Stressed, tired, distracted, occasionally amused, but she'd never seen him vulnerable like this. "It takes time," Maya said gently. "And practice. A lot of practice. I have time now. I'm making time." He looked determined, that same focused intensity he probably brought to business negotiations. "Will you teach me?" So she did. 3 evenings a week after dinner, while Patricia relaxed with a book or worked on her knitting, Maya taught Alexander sign language. They started with the basics he'd forgotten or never learned properly. The alphabet, common phrases, proper hand shapes. He was frustrated at first, impatient with himself when he couldn't get it right. His hands were stiff, unpracticed, making the signs look mechanical. "You're thinking too hard," Maya signed one evening, then repeated it out loud when he looked confused. "Sign language isn't just about the hands. It's about expression, body language, feeling." "I'm not good at feeling," Alexander said with a wry smile. "I don't believe that." Maya demonstrated a sign, her movements fluid and natural. "You feel things. You just don't show them. Try again, but this time don't think about getting it perfect. Think about what you're trying to say." He tried again, and this time it was better, looser, more natural. Patricia looked up from her knitting and signed "good job" with an encouraging smile. Over the weeks, Maya watched Alexander transform. His signs became smoother, more confident. He started signing simple things to his mother without prompting.
"How are you?"
"That smells good." "I love you." Patricia would light up every time, responding enthusiastically, and Maya would translate when things got too complex. But something else was happening too, something Maya tried not to think about too much. She became aware of Alexander in ways that had nothing to do with teaching, the way he rolled his sleeves up when he was concentrating, the rare, genuine laugh that appeared when he finally got a difficult sign right, the gentleness in his eyes when he looked at his mother. The way he'd started looking at Maya too, like she was something more than just his mother's companion. One Saturday in late November, Patricia announced she wanted to go to the farmer's market. "I haven't been in months," she signed. "It's too hard alone. But with you, Maya, it would be fun." They went the next Saturday morning, just the two of them. The market was crowded and loud, full of vendors calling out prices and people haggling over produce. Patricia held Maya's arm as they walked, not because she needed support, but because she didn't want to get separated in the crowd. They took their time, examining vegetables and tasting samples. Patricia signed comments about everything, making Maya laugh. An older vendor noticed their signing and smiled. "Your daughter is very attentive," she said to Patricia. Patricia couldn't hear her, but Maya blushed anyway. She started to correct the woman, but something stopped her. The assumption felt too nice to shatter. Instead, she just smiled and helped Patricia pick out the best tomatoes. As they walked back to the car, arms full of bags, Patricia signed, "That woman thought you were my daughter." "I know. I'm sorry, I should have corrected her." "Why?" Patricia's smile was warm. "I liked it." "Is that strange?" Maya's throat felt tight. "No, I liked it too." They hugged there in the parking lot, bags balanced awkwardly between them, and Maya realized with startling clarity that Patricia had become more than a client or even a friend. She felt like family. That evening, Alexander came home early and found them in the kitchen processing their farmer's market haul. Tomatoes covered the counter, waiting to be turned into sauce. The kitchen smelled like garlic and basil and something else, something warm and alive that had been missing from his house for years. "Good haul?" he asked, leaning against the doorframe. "The best," Patricia signed enthusiastically. "We found everything. And the herb vendor gave us free basil because Maya complimented his grandson." Alexander smiled. "Of course she did." He watched them work for a moment. "Can I help?" It became a thing after that, the three of them cooking together on Saturday evenings. Patricia would direct from her stool, signing instructions. Maya would translate and help. Alexander would chop vegetables with the careful precision of someone who'd negotiated million-dollar deals, treating each tomato like it required a contract. "You're thinking too hard again," Maya teased one evening, watching him measure oregano with intense focus. "I don't want to mess it up. It's soup, not surgery. You can't mess it up." Patricia signed something and they both looked at her. "What did she say?" Alexander asked. Maya hesitated. "She said you're both too serious. That cooking should be joyful." "She's right," Alexander admitted. He sprinkled the oregano without measuring this time, and Patricia clapped her approval. After dinner that night, Patricia announced she was tired and went to her guest house earlier than usual. Maya started cleaning up, but Alexander stopped her. "Leave it. I'll handle it." He was already rolling up his sleeves. "But stay? Keep me company?" Maya should have said no, should have recognized the dangerous territory she was entering. But she nodded and sat at the kitchen island while Alexander washed dishes. "Can I ask you something?" he said, not looking at her. "Sure. Why nursing? Why not something else?" Maya thought about it. "My dad got sick when I was 17. Cancer. I watched the nurses take care of him, really take care of him. Not just the medical stuff, but the human stuff. They saw him as a person, not just a patient. I wanted to be that for people." She paused. "What about you?" "Why medical technology?" "Similar reason, actually.